All right, it's 4:02. We've got a few dozen people here. It sounds like that's a good number of people to start. So welcome to Tokenomics. Let me go ahead and change the name of this meeting real quick. Cool. Hope everybody's having a good day. So yeah, we have as always, we have a decent amount to cover today. So we can just jump right in. Yeah, Giant Kid, I got into the habit of like typing really, really heavy on like those old Mac keyboards that suck. And I think I just maintain that habit very loud. So yeah, you guys can refer to the agenda in the stage chat. So first and foremost, this is kind of cool because this is our first Workstream as an official DAO supported, or first meeting as an official DAO supported Workstream. We've been working towards this for a while. As of Thursday, this is now Thursday's yes vote from the DAO. This is official, which means we created this and we have funding to actually really put money towards tokenomics related efforts. And we can cover what that exactly might mean soon, but I'm really excited to be part of this. And I just such a big believer in what ShapeShift is doing and what it can do. Let's see here. So in terms of like now that the Workstream is created, what does that really mean? I laid out some clear goals in the proposal I created, and I think the highest priority ones are as follows. One is assisting the Treasury Management Committee in setting diversification goals. This is really hedging our Treasury against the threat of a protracted and long-term downtrend in the price of Fox, which unfortunately, being crypto, these things can happen. So something to keep in mind. This is actually an area of active discussion right now with the committee. We're just talking about it in our committee meeting at 3:30. I have a separate line item for us to just kind of dig into that side of things. But I think in my mind, that is absolutely the number one thing. It's a little bit like, seeing these macro things where, okay, it's a new variant or God knows what could happen next. Russia invades Ukraine or something. The markets can be sensitive, or we might just get a cyclical sort of downtrend, but we definitely need to diversify. Second big priority is really building a team of contributors. This is what I think is one of the most exciting things is just capitalizing on the collective talent of the community and also people that maybe aren't even here yet. I think as the word gets out, I'm a really big believer in this, but as people understand the value proposition of ShapeShift, talented people will gravitate towards DAO, much like you guys have already done, and really add to the collective brain power we have to confront these interesting questions and really build a better tokenomics. And then the other higher priority thing I would say is focusing on Fox value accrual mechanisms. And what I mean by that is I'm really speaking not so much to like treasury management things, but really to kind of the business model side of things. How is value going to accrue to Fox? Why would users or holders want to hold Fox? So this opens the door to, or pertains to discussions like staked Fox or SFox, things like how do we want to handle liquidity mining, how can we encourage people to hold Fox for longer periods of time, how can we encourage more partners or affiliates to sign up for rev share agreements. Now that the platform's been improved, of course, this is a wonderful opportunity in the open source paradigm. So yeah, those are just kind of some of the things on my mind, and what we'll be digging into in the near term here. Moving on to the second thing. So this was what we were just talking about in the Treasury Management Committee. But in addition to diversifying as a hedge, we also need to raise stable coins for payroll. So ShapeShift, to be clear, will be moving from paying out in Fox to paying out in a stable coin pretty much imminently here, even by December, so for our December payroll. So there is a time-sensitive and pressing need to raise stables for December payroll. That payroll is roughly 450. We've kind of just been rounding up to 500,000, but that's what we'll need. In our discussion in the Treasury Management Committee, we talked about a few different options. We've been in some preliminary talks with Index Co-op. I always want to say Index Coop, like chickens. Index Co-op as a potential sort of way to swap Fox to some larger investors at a 5% discount. In exchange for that, we could get one of the Index Co-op, one of the Index tokens. This would namely be the BED token, Bitcoin, Ether, and the DPI or the DeFi token. There is also the specific DeFi token. Either one of those has decent liquidity that we could in turn then just immediately swap them for a stable coin. And crucially, the Fox would be sold OTC, and also these investors, at least in order for us to move forward, we would want that vested to these investors over time, maybe using a Sablier stream, so there wasn't a danger of a bunch of Fox hitting the market at once. A super appealing choice for raising stables, but again, this is just kind of a preliminary discussion, and we're excited to dig into that more. Alternatively, we could borrow from one of the Rari Fuse pools. We have the Tetranode Locker, pool number 6, and we have the Fox and Friends. There isn't a ton of USDC in Fox and Friends, although there is more Fei. And then, of course, Tetranode has deeper liquidity for those stable coins. These come with a higher borrowing rate on the order of 30 to 35%, which over the short term doesn't amount to a lot. Another interesting option that came up during our TMC chat was being able to get a bond on Olympus, and these basically they vest over 7 days. We could get like a DAI or ETH bond. This could be another compelling option. The only thing is it wouldn't pay out everything well, depending on how much of a bond we got, I don't know if we could get the necessary capital. However, one thought that came up is we could take out a loan on Rari and then use an Olympus bond to just pay down that loan over time, if I was following those discussions correctly. Before we go any further, I want to just kind of open the discussion back up to the management committee and anybody that was on those discussions and see how everybody's feeling. This was actually something we had to cut short because of this meeting, but I thought we could just continue the discussion in here. It is time sensitive. We have December payroll coming up. A few things to keep in mind: none of these strategies are mutually exclusive, and also we're not committed to necessarily any stable coin. USDC, Fei, DAI could all fit the bill. Okay. Yeah, Marley is asking, where is the budget going? That's actually a really good question. I think it's sort of the fact that that isn't. I'm sure those numbers are available. I know. I think Willie had some granular information on that. But one of the things that I want to do in tokenomics is create a little bit more transparency around where is everything. And it's also, of course, this is primarily on chain as well. So we can leverage that transparency and really have real-time accounting of what we're doing, ideally with like some sexy visuals. So it's easy to understand where are the funds, what are our liabilities? What have we, what loans have we taken out? How much are we earning on various things? And really being able to have a nice comprehensive macro look at the state of the Fox economy and all our efforts in DeFi. So that kind of, I think that's another opportunity for contributors to jump in to the work stream. So yeah, anybody else from Treasury, feel free to jump up if you want to talk more about like these options. It is a time sensitive thing. Although I want to draw the distinction between this short term need and kind of the longer term diversification goal, because we can say with certainty that we're going to have to raise, well, currently, a little over 450,000 USD every month for payroll. That will likely increase over time as the DAO grows. But we also need to figure out, and this is I think the number one question that we need to answer in tokenomics right now, how much of a stablecoin nest egg do we want to have squirreled away for a potential bear market? So I'll just throw out my own thought here was, in terms of the length of the bear market, these things do seem to be getting a little bit less, or potentially less, or shorter as crypto goes more mainstream. Maybe the bear market won't be as severe, but in my mind, having 18 months of a nest egg, given a burn rate of monthly burn rate of something exceeding our current 450,000. So, we could say maybe 600,000. So just given those figures, if we have 600,000 at 18 months, that would be 10.8 million in stable coins we would need. I think everybody would probably rest easier if we had that in our treasury. And you got to remember, we have a pretty freaking big treasury right now, on the order of 300 million. So we're not talking about a big opportunity cost of missing out on other things. At the same time, we're really hedging ourselves against a bear market. So many ICOs were caught with their pants down in following, 2017, 2018, because they just were sitting on their native, or they were sitting on ETH primarily that they had raised, and granted there weren't as many ways to hedge, but it got pretty ugly. I think also diversifying quickly in a sensible way would send a clear signal to the broader crypto world, that we're a DAO that's approaching this very methodically, and we're really doing this with an eye towards risk management. It's not sort of just sucking those moon fumes and saying YOLO, up only. I feel like up only will seem like a quaint, distant memory once the bear market hits, whenever that does hit. So, so I think that would be a good initial goal. Assume a $600,000 burn rate every month, and targeting 18 months of paying that. We of course wouldn't have to raise that in stables immediately, but those are my initial thoughts. Of course, that's just me. I would like to turn it over to anybody else that might have an alternate perspective or similar thoughts along those lines.
Hey, Kent, this is Josh.
Hey, Josh.
I agree. I think that 18 months sounds about right. I always thought 1 to 2 years, so 18 months, right in the middle, sounds like a good target to me.
Yeah, and it could. Who knows? It could be. If we do hit a 2-year slide, That certainly wouldn't be surprising, but that at least if things are still ugly after 18 months, there's probably additional things we could steps we could take, but at least we're pretty well prepared for that eventuality.
Well, if I think I could see it if things are still ugly after a year, if we hadn't yet, we start cutting costs, right? And then we make the remainder last longer that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, good point. Professor.
Hey, Kent. No, I agree with everything you said. I think kind of looking forward, two things. I know that some people, want to be paid, half in stable, half in Fox or ETH or whatever. So, getting a kind of work stream to kind of figure that out and maybe have people be able to adjust that. And then that way, after we're doing this for 6 months, we can really get a good impression, because it's probably not going to be the full 100% of the payroll that's getting paid out in stable, right? And then,
that's actually an interesting question. Is one of the big benefits of doing it in all stable is just across the board is it takes away this complexity of having to meet payroll with a volatile token. The current workflow, and this is with the caveat of I haven't actually gone through this yet in Colony since the this workstream is new, but basically having to set a payroll date, but then compensating Fox holder or compensating people getting paid if the price of Fox drops, and logistically it gets a little bit messy. But there is something to be said for having the option to receive payment in Fox, especially since so much of us believe in the long term of this project and the token.
Yeah, my personal opinion, and this has been discussed a little bit with the workstream leaders, but they should certainly, discuss contribute. My opinion that all payment should be all in coin. Only someone specifically asked to take a percentage of boxes done that way.
Yeah.
And I think if they do it, you shouldn't have this weird accounting thing where they were paid less this than this, because they have the option to take it in stablecoin. If they decide to take it in Fox, they should take that risk on, just like anyone else. And also, of course, they can always take those stable coins on payday and go buy Fox. So there's nothing that says, if they want, 25% of their pay to be in Fox, well, great, just go buy Fox at market. And now they're the market selling payday.
That's what I was thinking too, John. It would be cool to say just stables, and then you could encourage people if they did want to go buy Fox just to go buy.
Yeah, no, that's better dynamics. And then the other part is, do we want to keep that 10 million, completely dry, completely, liquid, or do we want to, make that, have that working, earning some stuff? Kind of, that's the other thing too, dealing with, as we go into the stable, right? Kind of, where's it going to be? What's it going to be doing? Is it going to be doing nothing?
That's a great risk management question, because you could argue that so even holding a stable has its own risks, and that's one reason why I think we should diversify across a few stables. USDC has regulatory risk, DAI has systemic risk, which is also, they do have USDC. Something like USTC has its own risks, FEI as well. So at that level, you have just risk of holding the token, but then you could argue that, okay, if we are using those stable coins that are designed for hedging purposes in a bear market, if they're in various DeFi protocols, are they really truly safe? Can we really count on those? I would argue that we should bifurcate our stable holdings between the stables that we hold for that rainy day or that rainy 18 months, and stables that maybe we're leveraging for growth purposes in the treasury, things that we really, this is more risk capital. I kind of spelled out that two-pronged approach in my proposal, but that's kind of one potential way to think about this.
Yeah, it's definitely my opinion that that target of 18 months or whatever, which is enough to pay for expenses, basically for burn for a period of time, is great. But the treasury should maybe have a bit more than that, or at least whatever is not being used at the time, because obviously you don't need all of that for burn right away. Most of it, more than 90% of it, will be sitting there. should mostly be put to work, in my opinion, in various things, because at that kind of level, if you've got 10 or 15 or even $20 million of stablecoins in the treasury, earning yield, you might actually be able to pay your monthly expenses with just that yield. So I think that makes a lot of sense for the committee to explore.
I totally agree with that point too. Like, I could see some kind of policy of 3 months is just sitting in stablecoins, not being being put to work anywhere, just in our wallet, completely in our control, and then something like 12 to 15 months is, we know it's there, but we have it actively earning interest. It's relatively, I would say, safer investments that are earning us yield in other tokens or even in the stable coin itself or whatever. But I agree, some of it should
be. I agree with you, just it's relatively risky with those coins, and my definition would be basically just stable coins that are out there earning yield of more stable coin, not necessarily depending like earning yield on like some token that might get dumped or some other thing, but vaults like Yearn and things like that, or lending markets, even like Rari and Aave, etc. Those are relatively safe ways to earn further stable coins.
Absolutely.
It's funny. I agree with everything you guys are saying. It's funny you guys are having this conversation because Ocean and I think his hand's raised, so I'll invite him up. We were just having this exact same conversation from the perspective of the foundation and figuring out how the stable coins that the foundation will get, how will we use those to put them to work to generate yield, and just the exact same conversation. Should we diversify our stablecoin risk across different stables? Which, how much working capital should we keep just in dry stables? Which protocols should we deposit stables into? And also just thinking about ways that we can deposit stables that would also benefit the DAO, such as like the Rari pool, so that if we deposit stables in there, the foundation can earn yield, and also the DAO can then have more stables available to borrow from. So basically what I'm saying is we'd love to collaborate with you guys. If you guys are already going to be kind of doing the same exploration and doing research across these different protocols and stablecoins, we're asking those same questions right now, and we'd love to collaborate with you guys just so that we can share knowledge.
Yeah, I was just going to add just one thing to that, which is in some ways it makes sense for us to align some of this because at the end of the day, the foundation's treasury eventually will go back to the DAO, right? And so it's kind of one and the same. And so, us collaborating to figure out where, if we didn't collaborate, we could be taking more risks than we expect to, because both the foundation and the DAO could be in something that, they allocated to in a way that they thought that risky, but then we end up in a place where it's less diversified. So I think it makes a lot of sense for us to collaborate and at least, share kind of where our heads at in terms of allocations, and so we can go over that. And then the only other thing I'll add is, the things like John was talking about with Yearn is like we deposit that through the new Yearn router, and we can also earn affiliate revenue on our stables too. So there's a lot of really cool synergies that we can leverage with the treasury.
Yeah, great point. I think that's an interesting thing to, it's almost easy to miss sometimes, but there's the two entities, the nonprofit and the DAO, and there's certainly a lot of like synergies to play there. Ocean, what are your thoughts on like potentially like how should I put this? The makeup of our stables for hedging purposes. I don't know how familiar you are with the various risks across the stables, but like, what are your thoughts? Are you in favor more of a kind of like USDC as the primary holding with perhaps some DAI and maybe FEI or UST? Just curious if you have any thoughts along those lines.
Yeah, Willie and I just had the same conversation, and where we ended up was that we decided, preliminarily just 50% within USDC and 50% in DAI, understanding that your DAI is being collateralized by USDC, but there's some abstraction there which could potentially be helpful in terms of censorship if USDC ever decided to enact something like that. that was kind of where we landed, as just some initial conversation around the other stables, and really didn't see any other reason to diversify beyond that. But again, it would be a great conversation for us to listen into your guys' thoughts too.
Yeah, I think Faye is one that we hadn't yet considered because we had a short meeting and wanted to make it to this one. But Faye is absolutely one that we should consider, because that one is actually pretty decentralized and does not have the same risk profile that either DAI or USDC does.
Yeah, it's so nice that we have various options. I'm also glad to see that DAI is reducing its reliance on USDC. The USDC still comprises a lot of multi-collateral DAI, but the percentage has gone down by a decent amount. So at least there's less of overlapping risks with USDC, or I'm sorry, with DAI.
Yeah, and they're actively working to deal with that in a lot of different ways, which is cool to see, and I think it's great for all of us in general.
I would like to just, I guess, share my thoughts that what I would really like to see from the tokenomics, or I guess it's actually I'm a little, frankly, not totally clear about a tokenomics workstream decision versus a Treasury Management Diversification Committee decision, but I'm okay with that for right now. What I would like is some kind of a policy proposal about the diversification towards like 18 months of stable coins. How much would be put to work? How much would be that? How often do you reevaluate and rebalance? Like just this stuff like laid out in a document, I think would be a great thing to see from the workstream or committee. And then we can have kind of like putting a stake in the ground that we can then have more concrete discussions about. I love the open questions and just soliciting information and feedback from people, but ultimately I think a document with our very clearly laying out our policy, our kind of like our treasury management monetary, well, I guess not treasury management policy, would be really helpful for me.
Yeah, and a forecast. I mean, we talked about doing a risk register as well at the beginning when we were talking about the conceptualization of this. So I think those are great ideas. Thank you, Josh. Yeah.
I do think that it is hard when we've been under such pressure. We wanted to do some of these things, but when there's the pressure of like, okay, we have to get this done by December to pay this payroll, and we have to do this, and we have to act in this way, we haven't got to set up some of that foundation that we wanted to. So it is ended up being a little bit more ad hoc. But we are planning on doing that stuff. We are planning on having a dashboard, having places where we can see where everything is, where everything's staked, and what opportunities we're in. So just want to kind of add that as well. And then Josh, I want to answer your other question, how at least I'm trying to divide the line between Workstream versus the committee. And I think the committee has very specific guidelines, at least to the amount of money and the amount of Fox that it can influence, make decisions over. That 60 million Fox in our trial period. And our goal with that specific 60 million Fox, what to do with it, how to diversify it, how to meet the goals that we have. And then the tokenomics work stream outside of that is anything else outside of the 60 million. It's not necessarily like treasury management. It's like opportunities with Fox, or just it's much more broad. At least that's how I'm trying to kind of see it, because I agree it is a little difficult to understand why there's two things or why we're delineating it in that way.
Well, I gotcha. I appreciate that. And I totally appreciate the situation where the request is for some fast action to be able to, by December 9th, to have stable coins to make payroll. And I do not expect to have a full policy document outlined and reviewed and codified by then. That's a totally unrealistic expectation. And I do think it's important that the committee, you use that power you've been vested with to be able to do that. So I appreciate that you brought that up, Danielle. And I had one other thought, but I can't remember. Thanks for the comments.
And I think where I'm at with my head right now too is I almost want to take like smaller approaches, like it's a trial. It's let's get enough stables for just December or these things. And my devil maybe on the other shoulder is like, Fox is at 90 cents. What are you doing? Let's go. Let's make moves. Let's make quick decisions. So I'm right there in the middle of it, trying to think like, okay, we need the process, we need the foundation. But yeah, we live in crypto land where everything's crazy. So yeah, thanks, Josh.
Yeah, Josh, and just to speak a little bit more to your question about what is the scope of the Treasury Management and Diversification Committee versus the Tokenomics Workstream, because they are quite similar and in some respects kind of doing very similar things. So really the purpose of the Treasury Management Committee is to really like have, okay, we have 5 people that really have to come to a consensus on things that pertain to spending that initial outlay of Fox we've been granted. I am a member of the committee, and of course I'm also leading this work stream, but as far as like how tokenomics as a work stream relates to the committee, so there's that overlap. I also see it as sort of one of my responsibilities to help clarify kind of or make suggestions along in terms of like the longer term strategy, things like, okay, over the long run, like how much do we want to diversify? How much should we allocate towards growth? These are some things I laid out in my proposal. But the nice thing is it really, these two things are so complementary. I think the learnings that we have in the work stream and the thoughts we have can really inform and maybe educate the committee in some respects. Of course, it goes both ways too, because everybody contributing to the work stream can we can collaborate. So, and the other thing to keep in mind is like this is all very emergent right now. This is a brand new. This is a freaking DAO. It is crypto, and this is a brand new work stream. So, I think over time maybe these things will get a little bit more clearly defined. But even in these early stages, I think anything we can do to reduce ambiguity and improve transparency, especially given that these are all financial decisions we're talking about. This is tokenomics. That's a big win. I'm personally in favor of anything with that. And along those lines, if you guys ever want to jump into the Treasury Management Committee chat, some of you just did. Currently, we're doing those at 3:30 every day, an hour or half an hour before the workstream chat. So always appreciate everybody's input and participation in that. So one other note. So this was a great suggestion that John brought up. I believe he might just be listening now and not actually able to speak. But his suggestion was, okay, so we have 3 million in toke that we can that's just kind of sitting there right now. This is following our Fox to toke swap we executed to activate our reactor, which is of course live right now. That 3 million is just sitting there. So his suggestion is like, let's actually put this to use. Let's stake toke in the reactor, and then vote all that towards Fox, use that voting power to direct that liquidity towards Fox, in turn increasing our token rewards, and of course also earning on that toke that's staked. This feels like a no-brainer. In terms of risk, well, we're already, we have this Fox in the reactor anyhow. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to sit on the toke. So this will be, this is a great example of, the fast-moving the fast-moving nature of all this is, okay, suddenly we have this unallocated capital. Let's do something with it. So I think if the Treasury Management Committee is down to do a vote on that, we don't have to do it during this meeting, but today we could probably execute on that pretty quickly and start earning and voting rewards towards Fox in the reactor. And yeah, get that APR moving up.
Hey, so just kind of a policy procedure question about that. Was the 3 million swap, was that part of the Treasury and Management Diversification Committee's funds that was used to do that swap?
Yes, that's so that was that was necessary to fund the reactor.
Yeah, I totally get why I'm in full support of it. I was just curious if that was a TMDC decision or a Workstream decision, and where the $3 million worth of Fox, if it came from the bucket that the TMDC has purview over, or if it came from outside of that, and it came from within the TMDC bucket purview.
Yeah.
Yep. One of the votes that we did right after it passed.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Ron, great question. Is the funds that we've used so far being tracked out of the total amount allocated? This needs to be tracked in a visible way. This is being tracked somewhere, but it's not. We don't have a proper dashboard for this, so we really need to know how much is remaining. Where is this all going? I would say this is a very high priority need for our token efforts. Sorry,
yeah, no, you're good. We've posted the votes in the forum post, which I'm trying to find the link. So we are staying transparent there, but as part of our proposal was also to do a weekly report and update, and so that's something that is in progress and not hasn't come out just yet. But yeah, definitely on our minds and on our plates. And then yeah, the votes so far have been recorded in the forum, and so you can see, okay, yes, we voted for the 5 million FAY, we voted for the 3 million for Tokenomics, and the 50,000 silo. So those are our votes so far. And yeah, we'll work on getting that, like basically a state of the treasury, either posting it weekly or at least getting something that's more like live dashboard style.
And then the way we're operating here is that any Fox that the TMDC allocates, if it then results in whatever it results in coming back to the ShapeShiftDAO, in this case, $3 million worth of toke, it is then the TMDC's decision. They have basically control or the autonomy to decide to do whatever the committee wants with that toke. So any exchange or anything that happens with those funds, the resulting whatever comes back is the committee has the autonomy to do it as they choose. Correct?
Yeah, that is a good point, Josh. That is kind of, I think, the assumption we've been operating under, but technically that's not written into the proposal.
Right. That's what I was kind of wondering.
I mean, I guess it is like, the Fox came from the 60 million, so we diversified it. So I guess you could argue that that's part of our diversification, and it still is part of the 60 million then. But I think that could be clearer, and I'm glad you said that.
Because it does, with that authority, it does allow you, right, to really build the DeFi money Legos, right? That's part of the beauty of DeFi. Do that.
I think it does make sense.
Have the, to diversify into the stables, to diversify into these things. So it is our goal, and we have. It's just not explicit. I think it is implied, but it isn't exactly explicit.
Yeah.
Question in the chat was, is it 60 million Fox or $60 million? It's 60 million Fox. And then, God, there was one more thing you said, Josh, that. Oh, what you said too. You said something like, "Oh, was the 3 million? Did that come from the Tokenomics workstream, or did that come from the committee?" And so, I know Kent did request an amount of funds, but Kent, maybe you can kind of speak to this. You didn't request like management of a large amount of treasury. Like you requested funds to pay people, to pay bounties, to do that kind of thing. So it's not like you have millions of dollars that the Tokenomics workstream could do anything without a specific proposal.
That's correct. I requested an operational budget for paying contributors. But there is nothing the Workstream, the Tokenomics Workstream can unilaterally do to affect any changes to our finances. We're really here to provide kind of strategic suggestions and guidance and help along those lines. But really, the only things that can happen, or the only ways that finances can get allocated, is via a TMC approval, or of course just a general governance vote. So if I wake up tomorrow and decide I want to move into like $5 million worth of Tron, you guys can all digitally hang me from some tall building or something. But B, also say, hey, that's impossible. That, and I think that's very important, because there needs to be sort of a clear dividing line between with how these actions are taken and just suggesting different things.
Yeah, got it. Okay, that's good. So you don't have the only authority that's been granted even to the Tokenomics Workstream you have, besides your operating budget, is the 60 million Fox to the TMDC. If you ever wanted to go past that, it would require another vote.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, that's good. And Danielle, I don't know, I'm kind of thinking we could sit on it a bit, but it might be good to make an addendum to the TMDC proposal that gives you that would need to be voted on to give the committee the authority to then use the funds that are brought.
I do think,
the whole conversation we just had.
And addendum,
get that clear.
It couldn't hurt, but I'm looking at the proposal language right now, and it does seem pretty implied, or like that if the TM&D committee is using that 60 million Fox to acquire other assets, that those other assets that they acquire are still within their control to act on. Language in there, I'm trying to find that specific language, but
yeah, I read the proposal again and see what I what I said, and it couldn't hurt, Josh. And I think the one thing that is sticking out to me though is if we're literally called the Treasury Management and Diversification Committee, the point is to move out of Fox, and so why wouldn't we? The point is to move into those stables, and the point is to make these strategic partnerships and these strategic decisions. So
yeah, you're not going to get any argument from me about it, as is. So
I'm glad to bring it up, because it always helps to. What I have learned from writing few proposals that I have so far is I am always forgetting something. There's always something that is not caught in the first pass. And I think that's something we're going to have to learn how to. Is it addendums? Is it how do you kind of update those things that were missed?
Cool.
Marley, I see you on the stage. We're going to have a separate little section here for a validator chat. But did you have any thoughts along the lines of what we're talking about right now?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I love that this is actually off the ground and stuff. So but not specifically, I'll wait.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we're going to talk validators, which is super exciting because this is another revenue stream that's accruing to the DAO, and it's relatively low risk, and it's freaking awesome, and it's leveraging some really powerful infrastructure. Just prior to that, I wanted to bring up another excellent point that John made this week, and it's a nice forward-looking sort of thought. But this is really if you guys think about the split between DeFi 1.0 and 2.0, by initial take, as it felt a little bit buzzwordy, but really when you zoom out a little bit, there is a kind of a difference. 1.0 is really this idea of liquidity mining, these rewards. It's worked so well for bootstrapping projects, but its long-term sustainability for a lot of projects is not really viable, or it's questionable. DeFi 2.0 kind of lays out a better way to do this with things like protocol-owned value and one-sided pools that don't introduce issues like impermanent loss. We are in a very fortunate position to be early participants in some of these newer DeFi 2.0 protocols, like Tokenomics is a perfect example. And I think there's going to be even more of these opportunities moving forward. So kind of the insight that John had, or the question was, why not reduce our liquidity mining incentives over time, and perhaps as early as like mid-January, in order to really kind of reduce the amount of Fox hitting the market. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, John. I know you're just listening right now, but I think in general, I love this idea because there's a better way to do things. Perhaps on the same token, maybe we don't want to cut those right away, but Willie, along those lines, I kind of have a question for you, or was wondering if you could sort of let everybody know like the current state of our mining rewards, and then what are our current plans for that?
Yeah, so right now we are rewarding 15.8 million Fox over a 4.5-month period for the second round of Fox farming. And the total cost, we can update that right now, but it's interesting because the cost, I think John pointed this out recently on another call, is that the cost of liquidity mining actually increases in a dollar value as the price of Fox increases. So at the current price of Fox, we are basically spending like $15 million of the DAO's treasury over those 4.5 months to incentivize liquidity. And if you calculate how much that cost us per $1,000 of liquidity per day, it's $4.40 that basically the DAO is paying to rent effectively $1,000 of liquidity each day. So it's very expensive. And but the liquidity mining was absolutely the most effective way to incentivize liquidity in 2020 and for the most of 2021. But now these new options are popping up, like the FEI last program, the Tokenomics reactor, and the last program, to put it into perspective, is costing 7 cents per day for that same $1,000 of liquidity. So now that the price of Fox has increased, it's now 64 times more efficient per $1,000 of liquidity per day. And then that's before you take into account the fees we're earning off of that from trades, which makes it profitable. And then when you take into these tribe rewards, it becomes like incredibly profitable. So the plan, where we had left it off, is we basically, the DAO approved the second round of liquidity mining. And at the time, a lot of the conversations around how we decided how much Fox and how long to reward the second round was with the understanding that hopefully by the time this round ends, there'll be new options available to us that we will have had time to explore, so that hopefully we can at the very least decrease the rate of rewards substantially, if not potentially wean ourselves off of it entirely. I think this Tokenomics reactor, like seeing how much liquidity we can get from that Tokenomics reactor, is a big kind of unknown we have right now that could really impact that decision.
Yeah, that was a very forward-looking decision on the part of the community to kind of plan ahead for a scenario where there are better options, because it turns out there are. John just posted a great stat in the chat. The FEI to Fox liquidity as a service program is on the order of 40 to 50% cheaper at current prices. We also get paid tribe from FEI. They actually started that stream today, which is just super cool. So there are so many better options. And I think that $15 million figure is that, wow, that's, that's more than, what we're positing for our entire, rainy day budget. That is a substantial amount over 4 months. So the idea of, I don't know I think it would probably be wrong to not have any sort of liquidity mining moving forward, but cutting it substantially would seem to make a lot of sense in light of all these new options.
Agreed. And sorry, I had to update the calculation because also as the Fox price increases, the amount of liquidity that we're incentivizing also increases. But yeah, I think obviously we don't want to decrease the overall amount of Fox liquidity currently available. Now, ideally we want to continue increasing that, but if we can sustain or even increase that liquidity in a way that costs the DAO less, I think we absolutely should explore those options. And it's almost the same as revenues. If we're cutting our expenses, you can kind of consider that almost as it's the same as if we were to be generating revenues.
So yeah, this is another great topic for tokenomics in general, and I think that this, just off the top of my head, this would actually be more under the scope of just like general DAO governance than the Treasury Management Committee, since this is sort of separate from the initial outlay of Fox we discussed, and it pertains more to the general tokenomics. And it also sounds like that decision was made with a DAO proposal, just the amount of liquidity mining. But man, I really feel like this is going to position ShapeShift to be just in a relatively better position to other, similar DAOs, similar projects that maybe aren't able to enjoy or won't be able to enjoy these types of like capital efficiencies and liquidity rental services. So, so directly, like right off the bat, we're really on the cutting edge here, which is a little bit scary at times, but it's fucking awesome. I think next we can talk validators, but did anybody have any other thoughts along the lines of liquidity mining before we jump into that?
I think John is wondering if we can do the Tokenomics vote with the TMND committee first.
Just do a verbal vote?
I think
actually, go ahead, Daniel.
Sorry, as I said, I think we should wait till the end. We should hop back in the other room where we can get on video chat, and we should do a strong off vote until we figure out the long-term solution for voting as the committee. That would be my suggestion. So in 8 minutes, when this wraps up, we hop in there, do the vote, and then.
Cool. Seb, welcome to the stage. You had some thoughts?
Hello. Yes. Sorry, this is the first time I'd like to participate on the chat. I've been listening the meetings whenever I can. I have an idea. What about making the Fox token and a multi-chain token? I mean, we have different blockchains with liquidity pools that are far cheaper than the Ethereum network, and those blockchains, they have their own stable coins as well. Maybe if we convert 5%, 2%, whatever percentage you think could be good to start, we can split some tokens in different networks and have that opportunity in different blockchains for the treasury.
That's a great question. Yeah, the fees on the L1 chain for ETH are just pretty crazy, and that's kind of where Fox is based right now. I think the idea is awesome, especially considering the proliferation of these EVM chains like Polygon that have or Phantom that have cheaper fees, but also considering it's just a matter of time before everything on Ethereum at maybe the more user level, or I should say the majority of what happens for regular users is going to happen on rollups. This is, I think, a very likely future, and it's already starting to happen now. So how can we offer that support? Part of the challenge is like if you're bridging Fox over into different chains, there needs to be a reliable and lower risk way to do that. But of course, we do have a presence on like Polygon. Willie, you've kind of dug into some of the cross-chain side of things. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I tuned out for a little bit, but all about Fox expanding to different chains. Fox currently is on Polygon and XDAI right now with some decent liquidity, and I like to think that we're just getting started there. So that was another thing that we were talking about on the foundation side was how can we take the Fox that is sitting in our treasury and put it to work in a way that both generates yield but also supports the ShapeShift ecosystem and the DAO. And one option that's interesting to us is providing Fox liquidity on these decentralized bridges, where you can basically like deposit some Fox on mainnet and some Fox on Polygon and some Fox on Arbitrum and on XDAI and all the different layer 2s that you want to have people to be able to bridge Fox from one chain to another. And then you can earn fees just by providing that liquidity. And then that would make it really easy for Fox holders to hop between different chains without relying on a centralized party. So yeah, I think it's absolutely something that we're interested in, and it aligns very well with our vision of being an interface to all the different blockchains. It'd be sad if you couldn't have Fox on those different blockchains. So definitely looking forward to Fox continuing to expand to more chains.
Yeah, these decentralized bridges are super cool. Hot Protocol is sort of like uses an AMM type approach. Connect uses like sort of state channels like Lightning type functionality, but you can imagine integrating those bridges into the interface itself. So then we have a way to move Fox around for users, but also in a way that abstracts away some of the complexities.
Laura,
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, great question. And I like Laura Dude's points, like what programs or incentives are available that would benefit Fox to bridge to other chains. I think it's a great thing to consider. And it's a big part of the reason that we really moved to get Fox onto Polygon was that there was a program where SushiSwap and Matic were willing to incentivize a Fox pool and SushiSwap with their own tokens. So that was like a great carrot and incentive for us to move quickly on that, on bridging to Polygon.
Cool. Well, I guess at this point we can jump into talking validators. Grithax, if I can get you up on stage as well, along with Marley here.
It is Marley. That's it's confusing. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I thought I was. Grithax is a really sweet username, though. I like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, please let us know what's going on the validator front.
Yeah. So we had the proposal passed like a couple months ago, and like a 1 month building period. Anyway, it's the end of November, and so we did send our first payment. I was super hyped and super nervous sending that much capital. Wasn't even the biggest I've sent this week, but it felt much more consequential. So I posted in Tokenomics public if you want to see like a little screenshot, but essentially the first payment was 23,036 UST. And that was deposited directly into the Gnosis safe from the Terra bridge, which was really cool. I was really nervous I'd have to find a centralized exchange to move across atoms to ETH for the Gnosis safe, but it's officially been done all DeFi style. And in the scale of like needing $500,000 a month is it's not quite there, but it does help fill it a little bit. It's also the first month, and there has been substantial amounts of atoms staked in the later half of the month. So I would anticipate next month to be a little bit more all like at the mercy of the atom market as well. But super exciting. I'm really stoked that it's working. And I hope that it just keeps working. It's making about 50 atoms a day. And at $27, that's, sorry, my calculator's freaking out. $1,300 a day, which I mean, to me is a shit ton. And so I'm happy to be supporting the DAO as well. So I'm excited to see how this grows. And I'm working with the Osmosis team to try to bring up an Osmosis one. Danielle said earlier that we're learning a lot through writing proposals, and it's harder than it seems actually. So, and the holiday kind of took a nice break. So.
Thanks for the update. So just to clarify again, this is so cool. The way that you were able to bridge USDT over to ETH. So I know like Terra was like maintaining their own like more centralized bridge. So basically, you got exposure to US, or you swapped Atom for UST, and then what did you do at that point?
Sure, a little step back. So the ShapeShift Cosmos validator earns rewards every block, either from commissions that were on the block that you mined or from the natural inflation and the delegators sharing that commission. So over the course of 30 days, it earned, I think, 1,300 tokens-ish, atoms. Maybe it's 1,100, I'm sorry. Took those atoms, sent them to Osmosis. Osmosis so it was an IBC transfer from atoms to Osmosis. Osmosis, we traded atoms to UST, where there's like a ton of liquidity. So there was no slippage essentially. And then another IBC transfer from Osmosis to the Terra network. And then on the Terra network, I can put this, I'm trying to find the link while I'm talking. There's a bridge that you can, it's not there's a couple bridges. There's the wormhole, but I used bridge.terra.money. And essentially you just like send in Terra and it puts in the memo, like send it to this ETH address, and you just kind of like pray, but it shows up in about a minute without paying any gas. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's impressive. So a few extra steps because we're going cross-chain, but it sounds like it's not too much of a pain.
Yeah, it was. It's the IBC stuff still pretty new, and I was testing it this week, and like I just lost an atom somewhere, and I think it came back a little bit later. It was reverted, but it did just work. It the DeFi stuff is working.
And for anybody that wants to stake to the validator that the DAO is running, and you help operate, and just as a side, guys, I was sort of involved in the creation of this validator in the more centralized days, and I can speak to Marley's knowledge about this and just the infrastructure that he's working with, and just the overall awesomeness of it. So if somebody would want to allocate their own atoms to the validator that you're operating, what should they do?
Yeah, thanks for asking. That's a good question. So I've moved everything to Kepler. That's kind of like how I interact with these IBCs. I mean, these Tendermint chains. The Kepler wallet has an amazing UX. Really, really happy with how it works. I think I was using Cosmos Station, but essentially if you have Kepler, the extension, you can find us in the list of validators. So you click the little stake button, it kicks you out to wallet.kepler.app. And we are currently in position 30. I know I need to update the picture. I'm two people doing as much as I can. But yeah, you can find us at position 30, and with Kepler, it's just a couple clicks and a confirmation on your ledger.
Awesome. And no stealth mode name. It's just ShapeShift. I love it. It's been updated.
It's been ShapeShift. Yeah, it was like 2 or 3 years of Kent and I working on this thing in stealth mode. And in the early days, I was like really hesitant and skeptical, but it's actually self-sustaining profit. It's pretty cool. So.
Yeah, and staking is just going to get even more interesting now as we move to ETH 2.0. Or the Beacon chain supporting the ETH1 chain, and then so much interesting stuff is happening on the POS front. But yeah, Ron has a good question in the chat. He's wondering, Marley, if sometimes you'd be willing to share some knowledge, maybe just a general explainer about the validator side of things.
Yeah, I've been. As soon as, we just probably need to schedule it. I'd love to. And I'm working with the marketing and growth workstream to put out a Medium article. But again, there was a major US holiday that kind of slowed me down.
Cool. Well, thanks for the update. I actually am going to cut this short because we in the Treasury Committee need to vote on on allocating this Tokenomics. So I'm going to bounce out, guys. Please continue to chat if you want. It's really cool to see like over 50 people here. These are such fun things to ponder and talk about, and we're just getting started on this work stream. But thank you for your questions and attending, and everybody have an awesome night. Thank you.